two Yakima women. And they had a great idea. Their names were Ada Glenn and Althea Wolf. And their idea was, what if we started a study group to explore some new ideas about prayer and healing that are coming from a place in Missouri called Unity? So that's what they did. And they were so shocked at how that idea took off. Because within a little more than 3 years, in 1933, the Unity Metaphysical Center of Yakima was ready to call its first ministers. A clergy couple by the name of Christopher and Beulah Scott. Now, Christopher stayed a few years. We don't know if he died or if he just moved away, but in 1940 he was gone, and Beulah kept on going. And she was here in leadership until 1957, so 24 years. This July, I will celebrate 20 years since I first became a spiritual leader here at Unity. And even though I did take off 3.5 years to retire and get married to Jackson, stuff like that. But kudos to Beulah, who had what it took to develop a strong foundation for this community to thrive into the future. So, if the dates add up, I think the next minister who came in 1957, almost immediately after Beulah left, her name was Marguerite Landis. And she was the one who shepherded the congregation through the purchase of this property. Getting that in place in 1959, I think it was. And she left in 1961, and by the time she left, this was paid for. The mortgage was paid for.
Wow.
Woo! So the next 37 years saw a series of ministers, some who stayed 6 months, several stayed a year or two. There were 3 who stayed 5 years or more. I couldn't really find I think there were 4 different names that Unity has gone through over the years. But the one that was right before, not right before I came, but not too long before that, was we were called, any of you remember?
Unity Church of the Valley.
Unity Church of the Valley. Yeah, we were called Unity Church of the Valley. And we had pews, and we had hymn books, and we sang the Lord's Prayer every Sunday, and we had Sunday school for the kids. It felt a lot like regular churches, which was probably back in those days the only way we could get by. Because metaphysical stuff is always suspect. It's getting a lot easier now, but then it certainly was not that easy. So it was my predecessor, Reverend Sandra Soli Keep, who came in 1998, who took this community through a discernment process to consider who and what Unity of Yakima would be in this post-millennial time, after 2000. As you might imagine, as they were doing this discernment, there were quite a few people who were very attached to still being called Unity Church of the Valley. And others, though, got really excited about the thought of opening this community up beyond the Sunday service focus and the very strong Christian roots that Unity has. They wanted to see us welcoming people in for metaphysical explorations that could deepen and broaden their understanding of themselves and the world. And those members wanted Unity to become a center of spiritual exploration. I can't tell you how grateful I am for Reverend Sandra's work during that time. The vote was not unanimous. She took some flack for that whole thing. But Unity Spiritual Life Center was born in 2003. And we have been living into that name ever since. After I came, we sold the pews. Boy, that was a process. And we purchased these chairs from an evangelical church so that we could make room for larger events. You know, when there's pews all over, there was no way we could do anything in this room except sit in the pews. So years later, though, it took a long time. Years later, in 2022, I believe it was, a small group came together to plan a metaphysical event of some kind every single month. Were any of you here in on that? Yeah. So that's what they did. And they nearly wore themselves out. Every month was a lot. And they had to pull back a little bit the next year and not do quite that much. But what they did paved the way for a new path to begin to open up for unity. How many of you here today are here partly because you attended one of our metaphysical events? I see some back there. Yeah. And I know there are others as well. Our next one, by the way, is March 8th. So what does it mean to be a center? As I was saying, that's our theme for this month, is centering. In one of my morning meditations this week, 3 images came to me. And I want to invite you to see if any of those resonate with you as a way of describing what it means for unity to be a spiritual life center. So the first image was of the eye of a hurricane. Have any of you ever been in a hurricane? No, that's why I live here. What is it like in the eye of the hurricane? Well, it's strangely calm, I hear. It made me think of how people often come to unity for the first time when they are in the midst of some chaos and turmoil in their lives. And maybe they're feeling dismayed about the chaos and the turmoil that's out in the world around us. And often they find themselves tearing up as they sit with us, for they feel like they are finally in a safe place to process life and to find a positive way forward. Here's what Unity Minister Gary Simmons says about this space in his book, The Eye of the Storm, Embracing Conflict, Creating Peace. And he has I as the capital I, as in you and I. And he says this: at the center of the hurricane is its eye, a single theoretical point in space where the forces of the storm are in perfect equilibrium. At the eye, there is peace, calm, clarity, and stillness. The storm of conflict also possesses a center. I call this center the eye of the storm. As you can surmise from this analogy, the eye of the storm is your wholeness and spiritual essence. It is where you can experience the storm without resisting it. At the circumference of the storm, the winds of confusion and blame and the need to be right blow with devastating ferocity. The center, the eye of the storm, is where you experience peace, clarity, stillness, and calm. If there is a storm in your life, you can know that you and your wholeness are at the center of it. Knowing this, you can stop resisting or making wrong those who seem to be against you. You can instead shift your attention and awareness, and you can experience the conflict from the center, where you are capable of authentic and principled action. Doesn't that sound like a relief? Yeah. To be in that place where you're not blown around by all those strong winds of other people's issues. We come through the doors of unity And hopefully we find a safe and a peaceful place to come back to knowing our wholeness. Another image that came to me was that of a labyrinth. Now, many of you know that I love labyrinths. And I used to have a 40-foot canvas one that I would put on the carpeted floor of Englewood Christian Church once a month. Now, what is a labyrinth? It is a winding path with a number of 180-degree turns. So you are not just going straight, you are making some turns. And it has no dead ends, unlike a maze. Follow the path and you will come to the center. And if you've never walked a labyrinth, I just want to tell you there's a wonderful one that is on the west side of Gilbert Park off of Lincoln and 50th Avenue. And you'll find the labyrinth where a bench is placed near the path entrance. And that bench we helped to put there in honor of Babs Rankin, who was our own labyrinth lady. And it's a memorial to her. And she was the one that had the idea of even that labyrinth and several others in our area. But the labyrinth is such a great metaphor of life, especially our spiritual lives. So many of us come here after traveling a winding path in life that we fear is taking us nowhere. Perhaps it is here as we experience the still time of meditation, as we sing our songs and we share our blessings and we hold hands for the singing of the peace song. It is here that we discover our path has led us to the center of it all, to that one presence and power known by so many names. And our hearts know that we are at last at home. The center holds. We meet the divine on our path, and we know all will be well as we go back out to resume the path of our lives. The third image was one that Marilyn talked about last week, that of the 7 chakras of our bodies. The 3 chakras of our lower bodies, the root and the sacral and the solar plexus. The 3 chakras of our higher body, the crown and the third eye and the throat. And at the center is the heart chakra, bringing all parts of us together in love. Now, when Lynn McTaggart was just starting to branch out with her intention experiments, she did one experiment with leaves on plants. So in a blind test, people beamed love and positive intentions to one group of plants, while the other group of plants with leaves were ignored or even berated. You are ugly. And here's what they discovered. As they monitored the energy flow in those leaves, under the microscope, the ones that had received love literally glowed and sparkled with light. More than the other leaves. So much more that you couldn't help but say those words of love made a difference. And that's what we want to happen to every person who comes through these doors. That love would be ignited in us. We become light for ourselves and for others and for the world. Now, others may not see it like the scientists saw the glow of the leaves, but we can feel it, can't we? We can feel that love when it is in the air and in us. When we go out from this center with our heart chakras nurtured by unconditional love, the world becomes a brighter place. What does it mean to be Unity Spiritual Life Center? We are one with the one. Unity. We are focused on more than shared dogma. We are discovering what it means to be spiritual beings living a human experience. We are discovering our spiritual life. We are a center, drawing others into the space of calm peace, a place to remember we are one with the divine on the path of our lives. And maybe altogether, we are kind of a heart chakra for Yakima. Isn't that nice? So this name for our community is both a description and I think a calling. Together, let us be Unity Spiritual Life Center.